What would it do for you and your family to make 6 figures in the next 12 months? How would that make you feel? But some remain vulnerable.
So what do they learn in the training?
There is a solution. Self-reliance is a core value of being an American. Once you learn how to make 6 figures listing luxury homes, your world changes. No boss, your own schedule. It's empowering.
12 sessions, 6 figures, 12 months. What would it do for you in your life? How would that make you feel?
Once you learn how to thrive on your own, life becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah!
This sample presentation is to be used as a guide and not as a presentation in and of itself. It's more important that you understand the strategy than the specific details that follow. The idea is that you use your own content to create your own listing presentation using this sample as a blueprint.
So as we look at the components of a potential listing presentation, you'll notice we have 13, in this case, 13 sections. Marketing campaign can be many slides in your PowerPoint presentation and going into some fairly significant detail. For you new agents, this all may seem to be a bit overwhelming, but here's the good news. The PowerPoint presentation almost runs itself. So as you're doing it, you don't need to memorize a lot of this. What you'll do is you'll be taking the client through a PowerPoint presentation, moving from our work to explaining a performance guarantee, to explaining brand marketing and how that relates to listing the house and creating a campaign, etc. So as you move through the slides, the content is there as a reminder, and you just need to explain those slides. And you'll get better, use more elegant dialogue as you practice listing presentation time and time again. So it's important you understand the structure from a bird's eye view, but you don't need to memorize a whole lot to do a fantastic listing presentation. So that should be good news to newer agents. So aggressive marketing and experience representation. Why am I recommending you consider using those terms in your listing presentation? It's for a specific reason. When sellers have been surveyed, 2 of the things they want to see in a listing agent are success and aggressively marketing their home. So we're basically understanding what sellers want, and it's your job to become that type of listing agent. So I highly recommend you demonstrate and talk about how aggressively you're going to market their home, because the vast majority of sellers really want you to be an aggressive marketer to get them top dollar, if that makes sense. There's a lot of text on this slide, probably too much to use in your final listing presentation, but we're using it as a guide so you can create this slide the way you want to present it, explaining what you mean by aggressive marketing and how you as a company or a team or just as an agent are giving them experience representation. And you can sell me in the listing presentation or not. It's always a choice you have, is to kind of write on my reputation, my CV. You can put information about me in your listing presentation or delete me totally. That's up to you. So I'm there to help you if you need me in your presentation, or you can just rewrite this any way you want. But particularly aggressive marketing is a term we know that sellers use when they're surveyed about what they're looking for in a listing agent. So I suggest you consider it. Does that make sense? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through these basic components of a listing presentation and give you some context, explain them a little bit, so you have a deeper understanding of why we have put them in as a potential component for your listing presentation. And it should be informative, keeping in mind you're supposed to go into this presentation and change out a lot of these slides for your own work, if you have some, etc. So this is a guideline for you to use as a blueprint, basically, or foundation for your own presentation. So let's get into it. Let's talk about your bio or CV, or what we call who we are.
So the Who We Are section can include our company information, but it specifically needs to have your bio or CV or summary of your experience, and then why that's important to them. Why that's important to your client should express the benefits of your experience. If you have experience as a listing agent, this is a section where you can include some pictures of your past listings. As we mentioned in the Insight training video that preceded this presentation, using a slide and dialogue related to independent contractors can help you compete against competitive listing agents that sell their brokerage brand. The performance guarantee can be the most important slide in your entire presentation because it is you expressing to your client that you put your money where your mouth is, as opposed to most other agents in the industry. I suggest you have a listing presentation with and without a performance guarantee, so it's there when you need it, but you don't give it away unnecessarily. A potential component of your listing presentation can be to explain the difference between feature marketing and brand marketing as it relates to mainstream advertising. Once you explain that using the examples in this sample presentation, that can set up how you're going to create a unique selling proposition for their home. In our online resource center, you will find an article that I've written entitled How to Merchandise Your Home. I highly recommend you read that article. And another potential component to your listing presentation can be your advice regarding staging. It could include past listings where you had an influence on staging or examples, images and photography related to great staging. Staging is something home sellers look to you as their listing agents to help them with. So I highly recommend you include something that relates to your expertise in coaching them in staging. I recommend you research what high dynamic range imaging is. And don't be confused, it has nothing to do with high definition. High dynamic range imaging is a photographic technique that uses multiple images of the same scene and blends them together to create a fantastic photograph of architecture. When you buy Architectural Digest, you are typically looking at examples of what we call HDR. Since everybody's a photographer nowadays, sellers are often interested in understanding this technique a little bit further, which you can now have as an app on your iPhone or Android phone. But those apps simulate HDR. HDR is actually a fairly complicated process done by professional photographers. But the fact that you reference it will express some expertise that can help you get this listing. The following slides are examples of listing presentation components provided by third-party real estate marketing companies that do international syndication of listings. They actually provide you with the content for this section of your listing presentation, which in many cases are just fantastic slides to include. First, premium video, tour, and website, Facebook ads, email broadcast examples, ads in the Wall Street Journal, ads in the New York Times and the International Herald Tribune in London, ads in other magazines like the Robb Report and Jet Set magazine. And these are just a few. So as you can see by these fantastic slides, these are very expensive ads that you may be concerned about being able to afford. Here's the good news. They run them for you, and you pay a much reduced fee only when your escrow closes. For insights as to who the best third-party real estate marketing companies are, email us and we'll give you the current list. Many of the third-party real estate marketing vendors will translate your listing into other languages and syndicate it across the world. Here are just a few examples of that syndication: international ads and Google's international network. At some point in your listing presentation, you want to discuss brochures. So I've included one slide here with an example of a very complex brochure. Yours don't need to be this fancy, but if you've had some nice work done before, I would include it here as images in your listing presentation. So now that you've established yourself as the marketing expert with your client, you want to discuss pricing. This slide is intended to gain agreement on the concept of pricing. So you might ask your client something like this: I think you would agree, pricing dramatically affects showings, and pricing your property competitively will generate the most activity and avoid having to drop the price later. Does that make sense? So you want to kind of set up the whole pricing discussion by gaining some agreement on the logic behind pricing your property effectively. The stable market slide is designed to express to the client the risks in overpricing their home in a stable real estate market. And the concept here is to show them what happens in that case, and they chase the buyer down. This is a little bit complex of a slide, but it's very powerful. Once your clients understand the risk of overpricing their home in a stable market, you want to show them that it's even worse in a declining market. This slide is intended to demonstrate to your client that there's a connection between the condition of their home, the price, and the comps in the marketplace. I recommend you include some comps in your presentation. Now, you may have those as elements within the listing presentation itself if you want to go to that extent, or you can then have handouts. There are two components to the pricing discussion. One is educational, as we've just discussed, and the second component is the actual competitive properties on the market, the active listings and comparable sales that have already sold. So you should have those in color printed out where you can walk through those listing by listing, past sale by past sale, and then turn to the client and say something like this: based on this real world data, what do you think you'd like to list your home for? You want to make the pricing discussion their idea first. Let them commit to a price before you recommend a price. Let them play their cards so you can negotiate from a position of strength. Right versus wrong agent is intended to express how important this decision is. And hopefully by now they think you're the right agent versus the wrong agent. This is a particularly powerful slide when you're going up against one of their friends as a potential listing agent. So once you have your listing presentation built and you're ready to close, you want to refer to the sales skills number 1 and start using those closing dialogues to get to the listing agreement and hand them the pen. This is your second action list for week 5. Finish creating your listing presentation on your laptop. Go back and watch sales skills again and incorporate those closing dialogues into your oral presentation, and then practice doing live listing presentations with a practice partner. Enjoy it, have fun with it. Your confidence should be increasing. Looking forward to seeing you next week.